Welcome back to another exciting episode of Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people, where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. I'm Aaron Richmond. Tonight, like all other episodes, is of course copywritten by me and Aaron and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you. You can watch us right here on YouTube, where so many of you do. You can also listen on iTunes or anywhere you would listen to a podcast. Telephone number to be part of the program, and we know the number definitely works because the person on the other end of the string used that number to contact me. 1-240-681-9869. Aaron's Opinion 6 at gmail.com. Comment below on the video, follow on Facebook, Twitter, even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. Let's get into it. How's everybody doing? Tonight's guest, Gladys Morales, Blind Ambition Stories. You're next up right here on Aaron's Opinion. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Erin. I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on your show today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I was listening to your podcast earlier this morning, earlier today, and Gladys, I'm really impressed. It really sounded oddly familiar in a lot of ways to the work that I'm doing here at Aaron's Opinion, trying to give blind people from all over the world a voice to share interesting, entertaining, and educational stories with the world. So Gladys, why don't you jump into it and tell us for one thing? By the way, it's rather ironic and very entertaining. At least it's entertaining to me. So how did you find out about Aaron's Opinion in the first place?
So, I was actually going through cancer treatment at Cedars-Sinai, and I was scrolling through the Blind and Visually Impaired support group Facebook page, and I saw one of your interviews, and you were talking about Anchor.fm and how it's easy to, like start a podcast and everything. And I was very much inspired by you. And I mean, it took me a while to get here, but you were actually the first blind individual that I knew of that was doing a podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's very inspirational and truly touching to me because there have been many very, very, very famous blind podcasters before me. That is interesting how mine happened to be the first one that you have found out about, and I'm glad you're feeling better today. And
Thank
I
you.
I am I am truly that is quite actually when you think about that, that's quite unsettling on one hand, and on the other that's quite inspirational that my podcast basically helped you to get over a hard time dealing with cancer in a hospital. So that's pretty cool. That's really touching, and at the same time, that's kind of scary. But still,
It
I'm
was
really.
scary, but
I mean to think about that. My content was used to help you get over cancer. That's kind of yeah, that's unsettling and also inspirational at the same time. So, well, I'm really glad you're here. And yeah, and by the way, guys, Anchor is a great way to contact me too. You can send me a voice note or a voice message on the Anchor system. That's a wonderful way to get in touch. Very few people use that feature. It's quite good. So anyway, how did you build Blind Ambition Stories? How did you get into it? Now, you've only published two episodes, but why didn't you still tell
correct.
us about it? Yeah.
So, as I was inspired by you, I thought, like, I want to inspire other people as I was inspired by you. And I feel that cancer gave me a second shot at life. And I was like, I got to do this. And so I um I decided to do this to feature people who go through similar trials, right? Or similar situations. Maybe not everyone has gone through vision loss or has gone through cancer, but nevertheless they still have, their own stories of accomplishments and trial and errors and how this develops their characters. And so I feel that for myself personally, becoming more visually impaired than I already was and being a cane user and going through cancer, it's what actually propelled me to have something to stand on and to be like, hey, world, I want to share my story, but mainly I want to share the story of other people who are disabled and how they use their disability and their challenges as a platform to stand on and to share to the world. And there's just so many people like myself who are maybe not in the best place, who are feeling down, who don't have any motivation. And, seeing people who are disabled or who have a visual impairment doing something positive, I just want to provide that kickstart, that nudge, that urge, like so many people have provided for me in my life.
I completely agree with you. It's really important when we're able to produce content for others to be that will help them. It's really important that we produce great content for the visually impaired and blind community. Yeah. I see so many negative posts in the
Yeah.
blind and visually impaired support group. And, you're giving me the impression that you have maybe not been blind your entire life. And or well, actually, I don't know. Have you were you born blind, or did you lose vision as you got older?
Well, that's like a mystery to the world as well as the physicians, because I have optic atrophy. So it started being noticeable when I was 8 years old. And it was noticeable because I would start writing at the top of the page and I would end up at the bottom or the middle of the page. So then they sent me to a nurse, a school nurse at the time. And then she said, "Oh, she just doesn't know her alphabet. That's why she can't read the letters." And I was like, "What?" And so from then on, my father continuously took me from doctor to doctor to doctor until one doctor was able to diagnose me after running numerous. Actually, I was hospitalized in Loma Linda. And that's when they were able to discover that I had optic atrophy. And what the doctor said was, this is a condition that may stabilize, or in the future, you may lose your sight completely. So I was fine for a couple of years, going through middle school and high school and my attempt at college at the time. And then what fast forwarded the occurrence of optic atrophy was when I landed in the hospital with cancer. I passed out, and then next thing I knew, I woke up. I was in an ambulance, and they were sending me over to Cedars-Sinai to the cancer department, and I was diagnosed with lymphoma. And so post cancer, I was able to, I was kind of like a zombie, if you will. I really didn't know what to do. There was just so much going on in my life. And then remembering that my own father had passed away due to cancer back in 1999, I really thought to myself, I have to do something with this second chance at life that I have. And remembering that I had seen your post, and actually I started listening to a couple of your episodes back then. This was back in 2019. And then, which is really not that long ago, I started to, get things going and get things moving. And now I'm a cane user and a cancer survivor. And here I am.
And great, fantastic. Okay, so what? Let's see. So you haven't really recorded many episodes. What are some of your goals or your objectives for your podcast?
Well, I understand that podcasting is, what do you call it? It can be, right, like maybe like a slow progress in the sense of
It's
becoming.
not can be. It definitely is slow, painfully slow. It's a painfully slow process of producing content over a long period of time. Hmm.
Right. And also, I noticed that the Anchor suggests, and other people have suggested that I air an episode every single week. However, right now, in my second chance in life, I'm also attending New Mexico University to finish my bachelor's in psychology. And I'm also doing Kung Fu. And I also did training to learn how to. I joke around with my friends and I said, I had to train to learn how to be blind because I didn't know how. And so, technology and everything and all this stuff. So with all of that on my plate and the podcast on top of this, it's a lot to handle or to, juggle. And so right now I'm only doing an episode every other week. And my goal is to, down the line, maybe I would say 5 to 10 years from now, to be a little bit more stable. But as I've come to realize, for me, my main goal is to inspire and motivate people because, when we are in our darkest moments, we all need someone to be like, hey, it's going to be okay. You can do it. Some people have done it. Here they are. And I feel that that's very empowering because, like I said, when I saw your podcast, I was like, wow, he's doing this. And it really made me feel like I can do this too.
I'm really glad. And specifically, what I'm just curious, like what episodes did you listen to back then, and what episodes really stood out to you?
I have to say, I have chemo brain. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But one thing that I do remember is that you were strolling along and with your guide dog, I believe, and you were talking about, like your work or, what you're doing and what other people are doing. And, me being at the hospital at the time, I felt like, I was kind of like, what's the word? Living through you in the sense that I was experiencing being outdoors as you were walking outdoors. And
Yeah, yeah. I forgot all about that. I forgot all about that. That's really interesting. And I wanted to give my viewers and my listeners, before I got so much into YouTube, I wanted to give people that immersive experience of the environment. Walking down the steps, walking around the street, things like that. So I'm really glad that you enjoyed that content as much as you did. Yes. hmm that was in the way beginning of Aaron's opinion. That was when was just getting started with various topics from around the blindness
yeah,
community. Yes.
yeah, well,
Well, that's interesting. Very, very
yeah,
interesting. hmm
it was very impactful. And like I said, that's really what motivates me to, or what inspires me and encourages me to provide some of that to the rest of the blind community and the world as well.
Sure. So, do you think you'll ever record an episode outside with nature sounds and walking around in an environment outside?
Oh, I would love to. Hiking is one of my favorite activities. Right now, it's a bit cold for me, so maybe not right now, but later, I definitely see that in the future.
hmm Yeah, the other environment that would be good to podcast in or around would be like running water, like a river or maybe like an ocean or something like that, or like, to have that water sound in the background. That could be very, very tranquil and very soothing for someone, for sure. hmm
Yeah, I love the sound of the water
Yeah.
and the rustling of the leaves in the wind.
Mm-hmm, hmm Yeah. If you get a good microphone that picks it up well without completely, disabling your voice at the same time, that could be really good to listen to. Right. Right. Okay. Well, you said something else really interesting. You said that you are studying psychology. Now, anytime someone studies psychology, I would want to know, so what do you want to do with that? What is your interest about psychology?
There's a joke that goes around the psychology student community, and it's that our first patient as a psychology student is yourself. And the reason why I wanted to study, or I wanted to study psychology, was because when my father passed away due to cancer, I was 12 and a half. And I remember one of my teachers, my VI teacher, coming up to me and asking me if I wanted to talk. And I said no, because I was well, I still am, I have to admit, I still am a very distrusting person, but I'm working on being more trusting of others. And so with psychology, what I really wanted to do was to understand myself as well as understand others, like my family. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to help others and have an understanding of what they may be going through.
Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of jobs that you can do in the psychology field, but exactly what do you really want to do in the psychology field for work? What do you think?
I would like to be I in the cancer community as a cancer support group leader. And currently, I'm about to go under training to be a cancer support peer.
Okay, good. So maybe you can, yeah, provide support for people who are going through the same struggles that you went through. That's perfect. Yeah. Um, and what do you think about, you know, providing, um, counseling for other blind people? Because there's a lot of blind people. We see them all over Facebook that really need support. Seriously. I mean, what do you think about that when you read some of these crazy posts that we're seeing all over the community?
I understand them in the sense that, it's not something anybody wishes upon themselves or others. I don't think anybody there's not a child that you ask, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I don't ever think that a child would say, oh, when I grow up, I want to be blind. Um, there are, for example, myself, that's not what I would have projected for myself, right? But nevertheless, it happened to become part of my life. And so, as for the blind community, what I would like to do is also provide that support that I have seen from my um, counselor from the Commission for the Blind, my cane instructors down in the school in Alamogordo. They were real role models, and having that contact with them, of being able to meet them in person. I remember the first time I walked into the Commission for the Blind here in New Mexico, and I met Jim Solis. And he used to be an air pilot, I believe. And he lost his eyesight due to, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was RP, at an older age or at a later time in his life. But yet now he's one of the, not conductors, but one of the main persons at the Commission for the Blind. And to me, that's very impressive and impactful, and again, inspirational. And I hope to one day be able to do something of that nature for the blind community as well.
Yeah, so good, so interesting. Yeah, I've never been out to New Mexico. I mean, well, what can you tell me about the services there? What can you tell me about, the cities? I don't know. I saw an interesting post today. Someone was asking in one of the groups, where are some good places to live in the United States for blind people? So do you think New Mexico is pretty good? What do you think?
Coming from California, I have to say I love it because so we have a service here called Sunvan. I know in California it's known as Access, but in California, due to the traffic and everything, it takes forever for you to schedule a ride to go anywhere. Your ride can come 2 hours earlier, 2 hours later. Here, it's a 15-minute difference. So if I ask them to pick me up at 9:15 a.m., they can pick me up at 9 a.m. or 9:30. And it's for me and it's such a small town, not such a small town, but maybe for me, a much smaller town compared to, Orange County or Los Angeles. And everyone that I've met here so far, they're so nice, so caring, very helpful. For walking in the neighborhood, it's fine, but there are some parts that, it's dirt road and all that stuff. And you gotta, be willing to go four-wheeling with your cane and your tennis shoes, right? Um, but I really love it here. And the Commission for the Blind, and then there's a school south, 3 hours and a half south of here from Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's the Adult Orientation Center.
Okay. And this, as you say, this adult orientation center, that would be where people would go who have become blind, who are blind and need training, or all of the above, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's for anybody. When I was there, there were people of various ages and times in their life. There was a person who was in her 60s and has just recently lost her sight. There was a person who was visually impaired and because of the condition, had become totally blind. And so, yeah, anyone who is blind or is going blind can go there. And there's actually a school for the blind as well down in Alamogordo, and that's from K through high school.
Right. Okay. So they would probably call that maybe the New Mexico School for the Blind, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay, good. Great. Great. Um, so yeah, I mean, apart from your university, your podcast, everything else you do, what are some other hobbies that you do to spend your free time?
I love hiking. It's something that because there's nobody in my family who has a visual impairment as well as other people that I've met around here, and they're surprised that I love hiking because I'm blind and I have to use a cane now, but I really enjoy it. Right now, the weather is a bit too cold for me, but it's still doable. And another thing that I love listening to podcasts, as you may know. And also, I love listening to music. I like to do Kung Fu. Generally, we have that 3 to 4 times a week. And then I love dancing. Salsa is my favorite.
Very interesting. What was the longest hike you have ever taken on?
I believe it was 16 miles.
Oh, wow. And how long did it take you to walk 16 miles?
Well, that was a while ago, so I don't remember this. That was before cancer. Um, yeah, I don't remember how long it took me, but I remember meeting up with a hiking group and we went on this hike and it was an all day thing. So it wasn't necessarily timed.
Hmm. That's interesting. But do you think you started around dawn or early in the morning?
Oh yeah. So we started early in the morning. We hiked like the first 8 miles and then we had lunch. Everybody packed their own lunch and then we hiked the 8 miles back because it was a loop.
Oh, I see. It's basically a big 8 mile loop,
Mm-hmm.
or 16 mile loop, really, when you think of it.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm, very interesting. And how would you describe that terrain?
Um, Maybe medium. Definitely not for beginners, but maybe a little bit medium.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it's extremely intense either, but because there was a lot of narrow spots, rocks, different terrain. Um, and it was a lot of fun. And my favorite part was, the trees, the nature, the birds.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, that's so good. And speaking of nature and animals, do you have any pets, by the way?
I am an aunt of two kittens. They are my cousin's kittens, and I'm their auntie. Their names are Thanatos and Hades.
Very interesting. So good. So good. Okay. Well, that is great. And have you traveled much overseas?
Once, and that was prior to me being a cane user. I actually went to Taiwan for a couple of weeks.
Really? Now, why did you go to Taiwan? That's very interesting.
um, this was when I was dating a gentleman who is from Taiwan.
But by the way, you don't need to answer that if you don't want to get in.
Okay. Yeah, it was a good experience though. The food was delicious. The food was delicious. I will not Chinese food is just not the same here anymore. And I
Right.
know Taiwan is not China, but they have much better food than they do here, in my opinion.
Sure. Sure. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, I've never been to Asia. I've been all over Europe.
Hmm.
And I've even been to Swaziland in Africa, near South Africa, as a matter of fact. But I've never been to Asia. So that's very interesting.
It's on your bucket list.
I don't know. I suppose I don't know. There's other stuff that I want to do in like other kind of more private goals, more secretive goals about some of my other ambitions, I guess, in life. I don't know. I'm sure I'll do more traveling, but I've traveled so much in my life. I've lost a lot of that, I guess. Well, and I don't even want to say lost. I just don't feel as great of a need to travel as much.
Mm.
But
Well,
I'm sure I will, get out again at some point. Hmm.
I was gonna say there's so many parts of the world like I really want to experience that. Of course, after all of this calms down, with the COVID and everything. Um, I know that that's been a little bit challenging. And I feel that for the blind community specifically, I recently saw a post from someone who said that they had not been going out of their house for so long. And, for those kinds of situations, right? That's the primary reason why I started Blind Ambition Stories, so that they can have someone or something to listen to that will bring them at least a thread of hope.
Right, right. And in addition to hope, I hope to provide listeners with some content that could really help, that really helps them in life, some good material to help them go through life with is what I hope to provide. In addition to hope, hope is important, but we also need strong content.
Right.
Is yeah, yeah. Okay. Now, I mean, with your podcast, why don't we get into some of the, I guess, self promotion, some plugs here. So, do you have a website, or are you just basically doing what I do, where we just produce episodes as we go along? Or I guess, how are you planning on organizing your podcast? Yeah.
Well, I'm right at the beginning of everything, so it's kind of like trial and error and learning and what works and what doesn't. But recently, I have a Facebook page that's called Blind Ambition Stories. Also, I've been published on Spotify under Blind Ambition Stories, Google Podcasts as well under Blind Ambition Stories, and Apple Podcast a couple of weeks ago. So I'm very, very super excited about that. And also, I'm excited about the people that are going to be coming out or that will be debuted in my coming up episodes. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and I really enjoy meeting new people virtually and hearing their story, their background, how they got to where they're at. And for me as a host, or I feel inspired as I'm listening to their story. And I feel like I feel motivated through these interviews.
Definitely. Well, I'm really glad. I'm really glad that we had this conversation. Really glad you came in today to record this episode. I hope that you will be recording some really exciting episodes for our listeners in the future. I know you probably don't want to tell me who some of your guests are, but can you give us a little, not really a hint, but kind of a really, really, really vague clue to see if we can figure out who some of your future guests might be?
Well, let's see if I'm not really good at keeping secrets, but I've been
No,
working on that now.
then you can just tell me the truth. Who's coming on your show?
I was like, I like that, Aaron. Well, coming up next is going to be Aaron from Aaron's Opinion.
Oh, good. If I had well, now why didn't you tell me before? If I had known that, I would have scheduled this an hour earlier, and we would have done just 2 hours. I would have just pushed the stop button at one. No, I'm serious. I would have pushed stop at 1 hour, saved my side of it, and then pushed record again, and then sent you back that side of the recording for you. That's what I would have done.
I'm like, I guess we'll just have to reschedule and we're gonna have to talk again.
Oh, your guests are so difficult. God, guests are so difficult in this industry. What is with these people? God, just trying to do a 2 hour show, you make it into a 5 hour project. Oh my God.
Right?
Of course, of course. Now that you brought it up, I would be very entertained and tremendously honored to be a guest on your show. But apart from me, any other people that are like important or really exciting, you know.
Well, I'm gonna say her name because I was very inspired by her. And she actually is,
Uh,
well,
is it does her first name start with an M by any chance?
nope.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. It's I'm kind of I can be kind of cautious about the name dropping if it's a high profile person. So yeah, who is it? Who is it?
Well, she is high profile in my opinion because number one, she works at one of the commissions for the blind out in New York. Number two, she started a nonprofit foundation that is pretty high up there, and it's based on volunteers who help out with it. And when I was just so astonished to have been able to meet her and connect with her, and I was so also happy that she agreed to be one of my guests, and I just can't wait for people to hear about her. And then as well, a gentleman who started a new app or a new like a better version of Siri that's voice command for.
Guys, I know who that is. Can I tell them who it is? Because I talked to him just a couple weeks ago. Just last week,
Yeah.
he was on my show.
Yes.
You would be that, ladies and gentlemen. His name is Pramit, and he is the CEO of Lowy Voice Control
Yes.
in India. Oh, he's wonderful. I would talk to him any day. He's an amazing speaker. He's a blast. He's a lot of fun to talk to. He's a wonderful. As a matter of fact, just after we finish this recording, you're going to be added in my WhatsApp group. I forget if Pramit joined or no, I forget if he's in that group, but I can. But yeah, he's a wonderful friend in the podcast community. He's so guys, definitely check that one out. He was a great listen on Aaron's Opinion. I guarantee you, I want to listen to what he says to you. So that's going to be a great one. Good for you. So good, so good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm excited for him as well. Also, for Valentine, so my episodes air every other Friday. And
Yeah.
so on the Friday before Valentine, I'm going to have an erotica writer.
Oh, I think I
And
might know who that is too. She's also blind, right?
yes.
I might have interviewed her too. I've interviewed a lot of people. That one sounds familiar. Now I forget what her name is, but I know I've interviewed someone in that industry who's written in that genre. Hmm.
Yeah, and her, I mean, her story sounds awesome. And so I'm excited to debut her interview the Friday before Valentine's Day.
Right, right. You should always make a note to publish as much as you can. You know, the answer is publish as many episodes as possible whenever you want to publish. There's no rhyme or reason to the scheduling aspect. So as much as you
Mm.
can push out, just keep publishing, keep pushing content, and then eventually, and it's going to take 3 or 4. It's going to take several years of doing it, but eventually someone notices. It does not happen right away. And it took a while for people to start texting in and asking to come on the show. It takes a lot of courage. Um, but the other really hysterical thing about this whole episode that we're recording now is I was wondering in the back of my mind all these days this week. I was wondering, gee, whatever happened to that Lala Morales person, whoever that is? When is that? Because I remember in the back of my mind, I was like, I know I was talking to that Lala Morales, and she kind of expressed an interest, but I don't know. I guess she just forgot, or just she just kind of disappeared. So I was like, okay, I don't know whatever happened, and then you just like popped up. So apparently, people are remembering. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lala is a nickname that my little cousin, who's 10 years younger than I am, when he was just learning how to speak, he couldn't say Gladys. So he called me Lala. And so since then, my whole family and friends know me as Lala.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. I see. Well, great episode. But of
So
course, oh yes, go right ahead.
I was going to say, Erin, what would be some of your advice for me and as someone who looks up to you for what you're doing?
So sweet. You're so kind and so sweet. My advice, Gladys, is to remember three important things. Remember your audience, your audience, your audience, and then always enjoy every episode you produce. Make it personal, make it fun, make it cool, make it relaxed. You know, really just be able to have an open, cool conversation with people. And that's really all that matters. I was about to ask you before you asked that great question. I was about to ask Gladys at the end of this episode, which is basically where I feel we are right now. If you can ask me only one question to really make me sweat to see if I'm worth my salt, what question would you ask? Now, would it have been that question, or do you have a better, an even stronger question than that?
Well, to make you sweat, I would say, can I have $1 billion?
Nope.
It's what I would ask everyone when I was at the hospital. They would say, we did this, your vitals are this, blah, 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 blah. Do you need anything else? And I would say, can I have $1 billion? And this is my motto, I'm going to keep asking people. One day someone will say yes. It doesn't hurt to ask, right?
Yeah, I do, doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. Well, Gladys, know that you are always welcome on Aaron's Opinion forever now. And you do a magnificent job with your own recordings, your own podcast,
Thank
and
you.
I'm really looking forward to having you on the show anytime. There is, of course, as we leave, I will of course let you know that you guys, you can click the link in the description um, to listen to Gladys's podcast. Just go to the Anchor page. I'll put all of the links in there just by going to her Anchor page. You can find all of the platforms. I think that is a perfectly good way to listen. Unless, are you on YouTube yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. I think I'll just send people over to your Anchor page. They can find out a lot of information just by listening to your content. All right. Aaron's Opinion 6 at gmail.com, 1240-681-9869. Follow on Facebook, Twitter, comment below right here on YouTube. Even consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. Gladys, do you know how I end every episode of Aaron's Opinion? There's a saying that we say here, a slogan, basically.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't. I'm dying for a guest to actually know it so I can end an episode with a guest actually saying, because that would be pretty cool. But thanks so much, Gladys. Here's how we end. All right, everybody. Gladys, I wish you the very best of health. I wish the world very best of health. And until next time, help one person today, help a million people tomorrow.